Okay, so hello. Here we are. Okay, so originally last summer we had kind of talked about being paired Alaska and Puerto Rico, trying to do some comparisons with our students about phonology. So green up, green down, bud burst. And I think that's been the most successful part, is getting the kids out to actually collect that data and getting it submitted to Globe. We also wanted the students to kind of do more of an inquiry type investigation on try to discover what those factors are, the indicators that influence when green up, green down, bud burst is going to occur. And I kind of got started on that. My equipment came a little late, so we're done with our green down season when it showed up. So we'll try to do better on that one next year. And then wanted to try to do some comparisons where the kids would get to talk to each other from Puerto Rico, Alaska, perhaps even Colorado kids, get some elevation in there also. And I think that's a work in progress. Roger, or Richard, did you have anything else to
No,
say?
that sounds about right. We've also done some phonology studies, some canopy cover, ground cover. We have two actual biological sites that we're starting up on. We visited one 3 times and the new one just once, and I'll show you some photos of those later.
Okay, yeah, that's mine. Is basically a lot of photos too. So I had out on our cross country trails, which are right on the school property, just to kind of the logistics of things easier, I divided the classes. I had 3 classes, and so I divided them into 9 groups because there were 9 frisbee golf baskets out there, and so that way they each had a destination to go to, and I knew where they should be, and I could make my loop and visit them all. And so each site actually then had 3 different groups who would visit that spot and share the same branch. Now, I'm not sure if I'll do that again next year. I might have just 3 different branches. It was a little bit tricky for them, and I don't know, sometimes I was suspicious they were sabotaging each other and stuff like that because they're high schoolers. But so that was kind of just the logistics of how I set it up, and we did I'll talk about it in a minute, but a bunch of different lessons at their study sites, as well as just collecting when the leaves were changing color and when they fell off. So that's why we have our little number 7 basket there. And I also had them take the north, south, east, west photos and submit those to the website for the land cover study. So as I learned more, because they would get to go outside and use their phones, which they thought was amazing, to take pictures, but then they'd all start emailing them to me and not necessarily labeling what they were or which site they were at. So I told them to start taking photos with the basket in the picture so that I would always know, okay, that's site 5 and know where to file it. And then I just have a picture there of the students showing how they compare the colors for green down. And then we have actually gone back in, September was the original green down, and so they took some pictures. You can kind of see the colors changing there. And then October, I had them go back out and take pictures, and that was pretty late in October, so you can really see pretty much all the leaves are down on the ground. And then a few brave students went out in January and also took pictures. So you can see the frisbee golf basket back there is up to the bottom there in snow. We have a lot of snow this year compared to other years, so it was an adventure. So some of the lessons that I did as part of seasons and biomes and looking at climate change unit right at the beginning of the school year is first just going out and having them determine their land cover, determine the dominant tree species, because you need to know that to be able to do the green down. We had them do the muck codes where they use the book to try to determine exactly the classification of their land cover. A little bit of biome investigation, just talking about different biomes, took the pictures, entered the data on the website as far as green down. I also tried to include, as part of the whole unit, more climate change stuff. There's a bunch of the globe lessons that I used under the Earth systems, as far as like the effect of oceans on climate. I also found a lab where they did leaf pigments, and so they went out and got different colored leaves and ground them up, put them in alcohol, and then we tried to do some chromatography and see the different pigments in there. The global patterns lessons and just talking about remote sensing and satellites. I loved it. It was a great unit. The kids are really into it. They love going outside. They love taking pictures. The negative, I would say, is just the guilt factor, because I was not following the prescribed curriculum and the prescribed order, and we got really behind, and so then I had to play catch up. I feel like it was worth it, but it's just one of those give and take things. If they want to have a very scripted scope and sequence, then you're not going to really have time for stuff like this. So, oh, another kind of fun thing we did is I had some third grade students who wanted to come over and just use our, oh, sorry, I spelled students wrong. And they wanted to use our cross-country trails just to look at plant identification and some lessons they were doing. And so the teacher talked to me, and we put them in groups with one of my classes, and they went out together. And in some ways, the third graders were teaching my high schoolers different things, and then my high schoolers explained to them what the green down procedure was and how to compare the colors and record it on the data table. And we're hoping to get that school started in Globe so that we can maybe have more partnerships. And some places I'd like it to go for next year is, again, that more student-led inquiry where they are trying to do some studying and collecting more data than just the green down to try to figure out what are the triggers for green down. Some more comparisons and communications, collaboration with the different schools, try to get the Colorado schools involved too, so it's not just location, but also elevation can be another factor they can try to figure in. I feel like these guys are ready, at least my students, for a little more difficult content. So I think the more factors we throw at them and try to get them to sort it out should be kind of interesting. And then also, I thought it would be really neat if we had some satellite images as we're talking about remote sensing, whatever the dates would be that are as close to when we determined that green down was, and let the students see what that looks like from satellite images and how they're able to nail it down to within a couple days versus a satellite image, which might only be every 2 weeks. I think that's all I have to say.
Well, this
right
is
now.
from the Puerto Rico update, and similarly, we did some land cover and dominant trees investigation. Our area that you'll see in a little bit is coastal forest. Main dominant species is an almond tree. It's a native almond, West Indian almond, and it is a tree we picked because it does lose its leaves during the year and then comes back on. And it was interesting that we're already a couple months behind Alaska, and we still haven't had the full leaf down yet. So we're going to be going out next month and doing another survey, do canopy cover, ground cover, and do a comparison of that. My classes are, there are 2 classes, but first took out the smaller group. It's the algebra lab, and there are 4 students in the afternoon class. And these kids are struggling with math, obviously, so I figured I could use this to help if I incorporate some of the math we'll be doing, the averaging, set out the grid, the measurements and such, and also doing the data analysis. So the other group in the morning lab class was really upset with me, so I had to decided to start a new study site, and this is on the first one is on the north. We're on the northwest tip of the island, but it's on the northern part of the tip, and then the other site is just on the other, just a little bit more to the west. It's 2 different locations, but they're similar type of forest, and you'll see some photos later. The muck code lesson, they're basically identical, and both groups were able to go through and figure that out. So we defined study sites. We've taken pictures. Well, we started last May, which gave me the idea of doing this, and then with the group this year, we've gone twice, and we'll be going again. In the second group, we've gone once, and we'll also go again before the bud up comes around. The kids loved it. They like being outside. They love doing the measurements, even as rudimentary as they are. And finding the percentage of canopy cover and ground cover is it changes from when the leaves are leaf up, leaf down. It's pretty interesting. And I think the one group noticed the amount of lack of shade the second time through, because even though it was much warmer then. One thing that we're trying to do is use high-resolution image to help us go back in time, and we found that to be rather difficult. Number one, to get the amount of photos at the timing you need and the high enough resolution so you can tell if the leaves are down or not is a very challenge. One group I've talked to, I wrote them and they sent me a bunch of links to various sites, but they basically have to order the images and they'll position their satellites to take images for you. And the cost was $3,000 an image. So we think we have to go to another set of plans for that. And hopefully, if we continue the research, we might find some sources that might be useful. But I think what we're going to end up doing is starting from now using our data and continue the pattern forward, because there is no data unless we can find some images to look back in time. We'll have a lot of weather and climatic data, but we won't have the timing of leaf down and leaf up and the bud burst. So next slide, please. This was back in May. This is last year's, some of the kids from the algebra group. Where these girls are in the upper left is up on the cliff, and looking down in the background is the forest. So we had to walk down the cliff. This is Survival Beach Forest. Walk down about a mile to the forest, go in, and then do our survey. And this is the north, south, east, west photos that are posted on the Globe website. And then I took I don't know why they don't include an upward shot of what the canopy looks like, but I figured it'd be neat to do that, so I included it on this photo. And this is heading back down the beach, and this is what we started in May. We just basically did the photos. We didn't do the canopy or ground cover measurements at that time. Okay, next slide. And this is, again, Survival Forest on October 12th. This is the first of the series. You can see a better picture of, this is the coastal forest right here. It is still on what was former an Air Force base. So and now it's public land. And these are the photos from the cardinal directions in the canopy cover back on October 12th. Only 2 of the students were able to go on the trip, and this is the trail going down in the lower right at the pass through a little cave before you head down the cliff and before you reach the beach. And we were able to collect canopy and ground cover data as well as take the photos. Okay, next. Please. Okay, this is the January 18th, and this is again we had another student come with, and here they're showing in the upper right is using the guiding tubes to look to tell whether there's canopy cover or not, and also so we're doing a canopy ground cover. We are also measuring the heights of the trees using a little using the angle and the distance from the tree. So that was an interesting measurement we were able to apply to our math class. And I don't know if it correlated directly with the curriculum, but it's okay. They had a really good time learning, and I think this is something they'll remember for the rest of their lives. We were able to mark the trees, so we identified the 5 species, and we're going to continue to go back to measure. Notice the canopy cover in the center of the north, south, east, west. It's thinning out a bit, but it's still not all the way off. Normally at this time of year is our dry season, and I think that's something that's going to be interesting when we start doing the comparisons with the Alaska kids and possibly Colorado kids. That Puerto Rico's has a different set of environmental factors that trigger the leaf down and leaf up, and it'll be interesting if we can collaborate and share what the kids discover as we go through next year. Okay. I think next is, and again, the student inquiry component is going to be the critical ones, and comparing the data between schools. Again, is the event, the timing of the phenology events, is it latitude-based temperature, rainy, dry season? These are all things that students will be able to investigate and hopefully draw some kind of conclusion. The collaboration is something we haven't really got into. Our school does not have Skype, is not allowed to use Skype, but we just got a new teleconferencing room, and the drywall is still kind of curing on it. So hopefully in the next week or two I'll be able to get an access to it and maybe make some contact with Cheryl and her students to just meet and greet and then set some plans for either the rest of this year or early next year. Now, the main idea, the last point I want to make is trying to use, the idea for us was to use some climatic study. Well, for us to go back, we're just kind of hitting a wall with using satellite images to determine the time of chronology events. And unless we can find some reasonable source that we could use, and that's what I'm having difficulty with right now, locating this. We'll continue to try, but I have a feeling that we're going to have to move forward, have the kids actually collect the data and from here on out start collecting data, because there's data for at least our two study sites, and maybe it'll continue on through the years and have enough data to make some kind of climatic connection there.